On a stormy night, I risked my life to rescue tech mogul Lu Xiang from a car accident, only to have my stepsister take credit for saving him. Reborn, I quietly watched her slip on that custom-made engagement ring, in my previous life, to prove I was the real savior. I married into the Lu family but was set up and drowned at sea within 6 months. Until his dying day, Lu Xiang believed I was a gold-digging liar who deceived his feelings. In this life, I smile and bless their true love. I just wonder, when Lu Xiang finds out that the one he married is not his savior at all, but an imposter, will this perfect couple still be able to laugh till the end? Chapter 1. The Lu family came knocking just as a light drizzle was falling outside, stirring up some unpleasant memories of that stormy night. My mom, or more precisely, my stepmother's son Wanfang, was frantically tidying the slightly worn-out sofa in the living room. Trying to make this old apartment we'd lived in for over a decade look more presentable. Hurry up, Qingwu, put away those design drafts of yours, don't let them take up space. She turned her head and urged me impatiently. With her usual irritation, I stood in the shadows where the balcony met the living room. Not moving, her fingers unconsciously traced a long, scabbed scar on her arm. It was from a piece of glass. Cut that night not long ago when she had to pull the man named Lu Xiang out of the twisted, deformed car door. It felt a bit itchy. Probably almost healed. The doorbell rang. Sun Wanfang practically threw herself at the door to open it, her face instantly lighting up with a mix of flustered delight and a carefully practiced, enthusiastic smile. "Oh my, Mr. Lu, Mrs. Lu, please come in. What an honor to have you here." The group that entered seemed completely out of place in this slightly cramped, outdatedly decorated living room. The middle-aged man and woman at the forefront, dressed exquisitely and carrying themselves with extraordinary grace, were Lu Xian's parents. Behind them followed a man who appeared to be an assistant, holding several gift boxes that looked undeniably expensive. And my dear stepsister, Su Lingrui, had deliberately worn a pure white dress today, paired with heels that weren't too high but were just enough to make her look graceful and elegant. She stood obediently in the spot closest to Lu Xian's parents, her face adorned with just the right amount of shyness and excitement. I took a slight step back, retreating further, allowing the balcony's shadow to completely envelop me. After the greetings and flattery, Sun Wanfang and my father, Su Ming, ushered the Lu family to the best seats on the sofa. "Linga, quickly pour tea for Mr. and Mrs. Lu," Sun Wanfang signaled with her eyes. Su Lingrui responded promptly. Moving with the grace of a well-trained hostess, Mrs. Lu, the well-preserved noblewoman whose brow was etched with lingering worry, gently took Su Lingrui's hand, her gaze both affectionate and grateful. "Good child, don't trouble yourself, let us have a good look at you." Her gaze fell upon Su Lingrui's face, carrying scrutiny as well as relief. "If it weren't for you that night, child," Mr. Lu also spoke up, his voice steady with the authority of someone long in a position of power, but now also revealing sincere gratitude. "If you hadn't risked your life to pull Xiang out of the car, the consequences would have been unimaginable." Su Lingrui appropriately lowered her head, her cheeks flushed, her voice soft and gentle with a slight tremble of lingering fear. "Uncle and aunt, please don't say that. At that time, in that kind of situation, anyone who saw it would have helped. I just couldn't stand by and watch. Her acting is really good. Even better than I remember from my previous life." Sun Wanfang immediately chimed in, her tone exaggerated. "Oh, Mrs. Lu, you have no idea. Our Linga has had several nights of nightmares since she came back. She was absolutely terrified. That day, with such heavy rain, thunder, and lightning. And the car smashed up like that. How dangerous. Just thinking about it as her mother gives me chills. This child is just too kind-hearted, too sincere." My father, Su Ming, nodded in agreement beside her. "Yes, Linga has always been like this since she was little. Soft-hearted, can't bear to see others suffer." I leaned against the cold wall, listening quietly. Soft-hearted. Yes, she was indeed soft-hearted at that time. So soft that she stood by the roadside dozens of meters away, holding an umbrella, trembling like a leaf in the autumn wind, and could only cry out in a tearful voice, "Sis, it's too scary." Let's call the police and wait for them to come. Meanwhile, I wiped the rain and someone's blood from my eyes, gritted my teeth, and tried to pry open the twisted, sharp-edged car door with my bare hands. The assistant opened one of the velvet boxes. Inside was a document. Mr. Liu took it and handed it to Su Lingrui, speaking solemnly. Miss Su, this is a 3% equity transfer agreement of our Liu Group. It's a small token of our gratitude for saving Xian's life. 3% of Liu Group's equity. I narrowed my eyes. In my previous life, it was the same, billions in value, given away as lightly as a piece of paper. Su Lingrui covered her mouth, appropriately showing shock and refusal. No, this is too generous. I can't accept it. I didn't save young Master Liu for. Child, take it. Mrs. Liu's tone was gentle yet left no room for doubt. She then removed a small, exquisitely crafted jewelry box from her own hand and opened it. Inside lay a diamond ring. The main diamond was sizable, with a unique design that reflected a cold, brilliant light under the dim lighting of the living room. This was left by Xian's grandmother, originally meant to be passed down to the granddaughter-in-law. Mrs. Liu looked at Su Lingrui, her eyes filled with a certain resolve. Additionally, we've consulted a master. She paused, lowering her voice slightly, carrying a hint of mystery and an air of inevitability. Xian's recent encounter with disaster was a destined trial, although the life-threatening calamity has passed. The karmic debt remains unsettled, and residual misfortunes linger. The master said that he must marry his savior, using joy to counteract the malevolent forces, in order to completely resolve it and ensure his future safety and smooth sailing. It's here, the core moment has arrived. On Su Lingrui's face, surprise, shyness, and fear eventually transformed into a submissive acceptance. As if chosen by fate, she slightly lowered her head, her neck forming an elegant curve. Sun Wanfang and my father were so excited they were almost at a loss for words, only repeating, This is truly our Lingus good fortune." Mrs. Liu smiled with satisfaction, took Su Lingrui's hand, and personally slipped the heavy ring, symbolizing the status of the Liu family's granddaughter-in-law, onto her ring finger. The size actually fits perfectly. What a coincidence. I looked at that ring, the cold sensation still lingering on my ring finger from my previous life. I wore it for half a year, and it didn't come off until the moment I plunged into the icy sea. What did Liu Xiang say back then? He pinched my chin, his eyes as cold as ice from the depths of the ocean trench, and said, "Su Qingwu, no matter how long you wear something stolen, it will never be yours. A greedy, malicious woman like you deserves to drown in the sea and be fed to the fish." He was convinced that I had stolen Su Lingrui's credit, that I would stop at nothing to cling to the Liu family, and that I had caused his savior to suffer a great injustice, so he personally designed that accident for me. How ridiculous. The one who risked her life to save him died by his hand, and that trembling bystander was the one he cherished above all else. Sister, Su Lingrui, who had somehow noticed me in the shadows, raised her hand wearing the ring. Under the light, the diamond sparkled. She smiled sweetly, with a hint of barely concealed pride. "Look, the ring Mrs. Liu gave me. Isn't it beautiful?" All eyes instantly focused on me. Liu's parents looked at me with a somewhat scrutinizing unfamiliarity. Sun Wanfang and my father showed undisguised warning and tension. They were afraid I would jump out unwillingly to expose the truth, just as I had in my previous life. I slowly stepped out of the shadows, my face expressionless. My gaze calmly swept past the ring, past Su Lingrui's triumphant face, past my parents' wary eyes, and finally settled on the dense rain outside the window. "Looks good," I heard myself say, my voice flat and devoid of any emotion. "It suits you well." Sun Wanfang and my father visibly relaxed. Su Lingrui's eyes were practically brimming with smugness. Mr. and Mrs. Liu also nodded slightly, seemingly developing a bit more favor for this sensible older sister. No one asked me how the scar on my arm, left from saving someone, came to be. No one cared about who came home that night drenched, covered in mud and blood, and who merely had a bit of mud splashed on the hem of their skirt. They only needed a savior who met their expectations, a bride who could help Liu Xiang ward off lingering misfortunes, As for who this savior really was, or what the truth might be, it didn't matter. In my previous life, I didn't understand this truth, ended up battered and bruised, and paid with my life. In this life, I understand. Not only do I understand, but I will personally send them down this everyone is happy path. I slightly curved the corners of my lips and gave Su Lingrui, as well as the whole room full of actors, a faint, elusive smile. Congratulations, little sister, you and young Master Lu are truly a match made in heaven. I deliberately added a subtle emphasis on the words a match made in heaven. Su Lingrui, my dear little sister, Lu Xiang, my former husband, in this life, I wish you a harmonious union and 100 years of happiness. I just wonder, when Lu Xiang discovers that the woman he married and cherished so dearly is not the one who risked her life to save him on that stormy night. When he realizes that the savior he regarded as his pure white moonlight is actually a fraud who can't even stand the sight of blood, will you too, this perfect couple built on lies and my death, still be able to laugh in the end? I'm looking forward to it. Chapter 2. The atmosphere in the living room instantly became even more lively because of my blessing. Sun Wanfang's smile became much more genuine, even carrying a hint of relief. She probably didn't expect me to be so sensible. Not jumping out to cause trouble as she had anticipated. My father, Su Ming, also cleared his throat, straightened his back a little, and began discussing some trivial current events with Mr. Lu, trying hard to create the illusion that the two families were having a pleasant conversation. Mrs. Lu, meanwhile, took Su Lingrui's hand and asked her in a soft voice about her usual preferences and when she planned to try on the wedding dress, as if the marriage was already a done deal. Su Lingrui responded appropriately, her voice still sweet and soft, but when she occasionally glanced at me, the sense of superiority in her eyes was almost undisguised. I felt like an outsider, quietly retreating into the shadows of the balcony, watching this carefully rehearsed play. My gaze swept over the inconspicuous storage cabinet in the corner of the living room. On the bottom shelf lay an old backpack. That was the bag I had carried with me that night. Inside were clothes stiffened and caked with dried rain, mud, and blood, along with a pair of worn-out work gloves with frayed fingertips. They were the evidence of my rescue and, in my previous life, the weapon I had used to expose Su Lingrui's lies. Unfortunately, in my previous life, this weapon didn't harm her in the slightest. Instead, it became ironclad proof that made Lu Xiang believe I was calculating and had planned this all along. He said, Su Qingwu, you kept these worthless things just waiting for this day, didn't you? Your scheming mind is utterly disgusting. And Su Lingrui, at that time, was just clutching those tattered gloves, which she had obtained from who knows where, stained with a few specks of long-darkened blood, crying pitifully like a pear blossom bathed in rain, repeatedly saying, Sister, I know you're jealous of me, but you can't falsely accuse me like this. I was truly terrified at the time, but I still rushed forward. Those gloves became the symbol of her bravery. How ironic, Sister Qingwu, a slightly cool voice interrupted my thoughts. I looked up. It was the young man who had been following behind the Lu family parents, with very little presence. He had been standing next to the assistant earlier, and I thought he was one of the assistants too. Now, he walked over alone and handed me a business card. My name is Jiyu Huaishan, a friend of Shi Yang, he said quietly, making sure only the two of us could hear. I was there that night. My heart stirred slightly as I took the business card. It was plain white cardstock, bearing only a name and a string of phone numbers, with no title. Jiyu Huaishan. I remembered now, he was that somewhat reclusive medical student friend of Lu Xiang, in my previous life. He had also looked at me with that same probing gaze, but back then, I was too consumed by anger and resentment to pay it any mind. Mr. Jiyu, I nodded, my tone distant. He looked at me, his gaze falling on my hand, which was casually hanging at my side and happened to cover the scar on my arm. After a brief pause, he asked, Your hand, is it injured? I accidentally scratched it, I said casually. He didn't press further, just fell silent for a few seconds before adding, It was raining heavily that night, and the scene was chaotic. Yeah, I echoed, my tone unreadable. Heavy rain. total chaos, so chaotic that the real lifesaver stands here unnoticed. While the imposter is showered with praise, Jiyu Huaishan's deep eyes glanced at me, and there seemed to be something else in them, not sympathy, nor doubt, but more like a kind of understanding under scrutiny. He didn't say anything more, gave a slight nod, and then turned back to the center of the living room. At that moment, Su Lingrui seemed to finally notice our brief exchange. She smiled and nestled closer to Mrs. Liu, her tone carrying a hint of coquettishness. "Auntie. That night really was all thanks to Dr. Gu. He arrived very quickly and handled the wound very professionally. It was largely because of Dr. Gu that young Master Liu was able to stabilize later." With just a few words, she shared the credit with Jiyu Huaishan, making herself appear both humble and grateful. Mrs. Liu was indeed even more satisfied, patting her hand. "Huaishan is a reliable child. You are both good children." Jiyu Huaishan showed no expression, only saying lightly, "Just doing my duty." His gaze, seemingly unintentionally, swept over my side once more. I rubbed the uniquely textured business card in my pocket, my cold fingertips gaining a trace of warmth. Jiyu Huaishan. Does he know something, or does he suspect something? But it doesn't matter anymore. I watched him return to the crowd, looked at the dazzling diamond ring on Su Lingrui's finger, and saw the barely contained ecstasy on my parents' faces. The joy of climbing the social ladder. The play has only just begun. You all perform to your heart's content. I'm waiting to see how perfectly you can perform this grand repaying kindness drama without me, the vicious supporting female character, standing in your way. I turned around and completely merged into the night and rain outside the balcony. Behind me, the living room was brightly lit and filled with laughter and chatter, as if it were another world that had nothing to do with me. Let that blood-stained evidence in the storage locker remain sealed away forever. This time, I have personally paved a broad and smooth path for you. Please, you must walk steadily all the way to the end, even if it leads to darkness. Chapter 3. The Liu family didn't stay for long. The goal was achieved. After leaving enough promises and gifts to dazzle my entire family, mainly Sun Wanfang and Su Ming, I stood up to take my leave, the moment the door closed. The living room fell silent for a second. Immediately, Sun Wanfang grabbed Su Lingrui's hand with the ring on it, held it up under the light for a closer look, and let out exclamations of admiration. "Oh, my dear daughter, look, this is from the Liu family, the Liu family's heirloom. From now on, you'll be the young mistress of the Liu family." Her voice trembled with excitement, and the wrinkles on her face deepened with her smile. Su Ming also leaned in, rubbing his hands together. His eyes filled with undisguised greed. 3% of the Liu family's shares. "Linger, you're truly our family's lucky star, a great lucky star." Su Lingrui let them hold her hand, her chin slightly raised as she basked in the spotlight of glory. She glanced at me, her tone dripping with condescending pride. "Sister, you see, I told you, when good luck comes, you can't even stop it." I was just picking up my own design drafts from the couch, the ones they had looked down on. Without looking up, I replied, Congratulations." My calmness clearly took her by surprise, and it only strengthened her belief that I was forcing composure out of jealousy. She withdrew her hand, walked up to me, and deliberately waved the diamond ring in front of me. "Sister, don't lose heart. Even though you can't find someone like young Master Liu, with your circumstances," she glanced me up and down with a hint of disdain, "you should still be able to find an ordinary office worker. Should I ask Mom to keep an eye out for you?" Sun Wanfang immediately chimed in. "Yes, Qingwu, don't be jealous of Linger. Everyone has their own fate. Linger is fortunate to have such great luck, and our whole family benefits from it. As for you, just be content and don't think about things you shouldn't. There will be plenty of benefits for you at home in the future." Jealous, I finally lifted my eyes and looked at the three of them, my expression blank. Why would I be jealous? I took a step forward, my gaze fixed on Su Lingrui's meticulously made-up face. My voice was soft, yet carried a chill that instantly silenced them. "I was just thinking, little sister, that night, you were hiding behind me, too scared to even cry out loud, and today you're acting like the savior. It's really like two different people." Su Lingrui's face instantly turned pale, Sun Wanfeng shrieked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Su Qingwu, what nonsense are you talking about? Su Ming also darkened his expression. Qingwu, don't talk nonsense and slander your sister. That night, it was Linga who saved young Master Lu. We were all outside and saw it clearly. Is that so? I curled my lips, not bothering to argue. Maybe I remembered wrong, holding the design drafts. I walked past them and headed toward my own cramped, poorly oriented room. From behind me came Sun Wanfeng's hushed, warning voice. Let me tell you, Su Qingwu. Linga and young Master Lu's marriage is set in stone. If you dare go out and spread rumors, ruining Linga's good fortune, I won't let you off, Su Lingrui said with a tearful, aggrieved tone. Mom, look at sister, is she still blaming me? Blame what blame? She's just jealous, ignore her. I slammed the door shut with a bang, cutting off those disgusting sounds. Jealous. I leaned against the door, staring out into the pitch-black night. In my previous life, I was indeed jealous. I was jealous that Su Lingrui effortlessly obtained everything I had to fight tooth and nail for, jealous that she was so fiercely protected by Lu Xiang, even if it was all based on a lie. But now, I just find it ridiculous, and there's a hint of anticipation. I opened my laptop. The cold white light of the screen reflecting on my face, there were a few unread emails in my inbox, replies to the design drafts I had submitted earlier. One small independent studio expressed interest in my work and hoped to schedule a time for a detailed discussion. In my previous life, because I was busy proving myself and entangled with Lu Xiang and Su Lingrui, I missed this opportunity and neglected the design work I was passionate about. Later, after marrying into the Lu family, I was even expected to behave properly and act as a trophy wife, completely cutting off my career path. In this life, it won't happen again. I replied to the email and scheduled a meeting time. Then, I opened an encrypted folder. It was empty inside, but soon, it wouldn't be empty anymore. Su Lingrui, Lu Xiang, go ahead and act out your life-saving grace, repaying with one's body drama. I will manage my life well, and, at the appropriate time, I will give your perfect performance a little small surprise. I really want to know what expression Lu Xiang will have when he discovers that the person he poured all his tenderness and gratitude upon is nothing but an imposter who can't even clearly explain where he was injured or how he got trapped in the car at the time, when that obsession of having to marry the lifesaver turns into a huge joke. Will he and his true love Linga still be able to continue being the perfect match made in heaven? I turned off the computer, and the room plunged into darkness. The scar on my arm itched faintly in the silence. Just wait and see, what goes around comes around. You owe me, and I will personally watch you pay it back with interest. Chapter 4. The Lu family's efficiency was astonishingly high. The preliminary agreement for the equity transfer was delivered to the house the very next day, accompanied by a check with a staggering amount, euphemistically referred to as a token of goodwill for wedding preparations. Sun Wanfeng held that check, her hands trembling for a long time. That very afternoon, she dragged Su Lingrui to the city's most upscale shopping mall. When they returned, they were loaded with bags large and small, and even the air at home seemed to be tinged with the scent of luxury. Qingwu, this is for you, Su Lingrui, uncharacteristically kind, handed me a paper bag. Inside was a scarf from a certain affordable luxury brand, with the price tag still attached. Quite expensive. But clearly not in the same league as her own haute couture gowns and limited edition handbags. The implication of charity was obvious. I took it and set it aside without even looking. Thank you, but I don't usually have a use for it. Su Lingrui pouted and ignored me. Then excitedly started discussing with Sun Wanfeng which new dress to wear for their upcoming visit to the Lu family. My father, Su Ming, began taking frequent phone calls, speaking with an unprecedented air of confidence. Seemingly using his status as the future father-in-law of the Lu family to expand his struggling small business. The house was as lively as a marketplace, but I was like a transparent ghost, moving between my room and the kitchen, undisturbed and enjoying the peace. I met with the head of the independent studio, and we had a pleasant conversation, They appreciated the cool and resilient style in my designs and offered me an opportunity to participate in their new collection. The pay wasn't high, but it was enough for me to move out of this suffocating home. I began using all my free time to draw and refine my ideas. The scar on my arm gradually faded, becoming a faint pink mark, like a silent reminder. A few days later, the Liu family sent a car to pick up Su Lingrui and take her to their villa halfway up the mountain as a guest, Sun Wanfeng and my father, as if escorting a princess to her wedding, surrounded Su Lingrui and saw her off into the car with endless instructions. Linger, behave well, Mrs. Liu likes obedient girls. Young Master Xiang, if he wakes up, spend more time talking with him. The car sped off, leaving a trail of dust. I stood by the window, watching the black luxury car disappear at the entrance of the residential area, a faint smile tugging at the corner of my lips. Liu Xiang should have already woken up by now, in his previous life. He regained consciousness on the 5th day after the car accident. The first thing he did upon waking was to ask about the girl who had risked her life to save him. Su Lingrui was brought before him. Following the rehearsed script, with reddened eyes and a timid demeanor, she repeated the rescue story. The details were vague, relying entirely on emotional embellishment. At that time, Liu Xiang was physically weak and mentally exhausted. Combined with preconceived notions and his parents' confirmation, he naturally believed it without a doubt. He was profoundly grateful to Su Lingrui and treated her with utmost care and affection. As for me, the one who, while he was barely conscious, kept shouting "hold on" in his ear, used all my strength to pry open the car door, and had my hands cut and mangled, I was completely forgotten in the corner of his memory. Later, I even became someone he despised. How ironic. In the evening, Su Lingrui returned. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes shining brightly, and her entire body radiated an excitement as if she had been struck by a huge surprise. "Mom, Dad, Xiang is awake. He spoke to me today." As soon as she entered, she threw herself into Sun Wanfang's arms, her voice sharp and high-pitched. Sun Wanfang and Su Ming immediately gathered around her, asking questions all at once. "How is he? Is he in good spirits? Is Mrs. Liu satisfied with you? What did he say? Tell me quickly." Su Lingrui was surrounded and seated on the sofa, like a proud peacock, and began to vividly describe. "Xiang still looks a bit pale, but he's so handsome, even more handsome than in the magazines. He thanked me and said I've worked hard." She paused, a timely blush spreading across her cheeks as she shyly lowered her head. "He also said, once he's feeling a bit better, he'll personally accompany me to pick out a wedding dress." "Oh, that's wonderful," Sun Wanfang exclaimed excitedly, clapping her hands. "Personally accompanying you to look at wedding dresses? That shows he values you." Su Ming also nodded repeatedly, his face beaming with joy. "I knew it. Our Linger is truly blessed with great fortune." I watched the happy scene of their family of 3, feeling as though I were the unnecessary outsider. Su Lingrui had shown off enough and finally turned her gaze to me, with a condescending pity. "Sister, what did you do at home today?" "Sigh, it's a bit boring at home. When Yangsha and I are stable in the future, I'll see if I can introduce you to a friend." "No need to trouble yourself," I interrupted her, picked up the water glass on the table, took a sip, and said in a calm tone, "I've recently taken on some design work and am very busy." "Design work?" Su Lingrui sneered, her voice not loud but clear enough. "Sister, how much money can that little hobby of yours earn? It's better to think about how to find a reliable person to marry." Sun Wanfang also chimed in. "Exactly, Qingwu, as a girl, don't spend all day on those flashy things. While you're still young." I set down the water glass, the bottom clinking crisply against the table, successfully halting their incessant chatter. I lifted my gaze, looking calmly at Su Lingrui, my expression unreadable. "Little sister should worry more about your own marriage, after all. A life-saving favor is such a significant debt. You must maintain it well and be careful not to let the truth slip." Su Lingrui's face instantly changed color, a flicker of panic flashing in her eyes, quickly replaced by anger. "Su Qingwu, what do you mean by that?" "Literal meaning." I stood up, no longer willing to waste my breath on them. "I'm tired. I'm going back to my room to rest. Behind me came Su Lingrue's furious voice. Mom, look at her, she's just jealous. Sun Wanfang's comforting words and Su Ming's scolding were shut outside the door. I leaned against the door panel and could hear my own calm heartbeat. Jealous? No, I'm just waiting for the day the lies are exposed. Waiting for Lu Xiang to discover that the light he believes in is nothing but a soap bubble that bursts at the slightest touch, and that first encounter he so firmly believed in was, from the very beginning, a meticulously orchestrated act. I can't wait to see the expression on his face when he learns the truth. It will surely be far more spectacular than the gentle smile he now gives Su Lingrue. Chapter 5. The studio's projects are progressing very smoothly. My design draft was approved in one go. Manager Ju patted me on the shoulder, not hiding her admiration. Qingwu, your Dawn series is full of creativity. Especially the main elements of thorns and roses, contradictory yet harmonious, with a strong sense of power. Thank you, Manager Ju, I smiled, feeling a slight warmth in my heart. This recognition was earned through my own abilities, unrelated to the Lu family or that car accident. Manager Ju lowered her voice. There's a private dinner party, mostly attended by people from the fashion and art collection circles. I'd like to take you to broaden your horizons and introduce your work. How about it? I paused for a moment, then nodded in agreement. This was an opportunity. The dinner was just 2 days later. I rummaged through my closet and found a black dress I had designed myself. Simple in style, with clean lines, featuring only an asymmetrical cutout at the shoulder and neckline, carrying a subtle hint of sharpness. Compared to Su Lingrue's extravagant dresses adorned with logos, I trusted my own taste and ability more. Facing the mirror, I loosely tied up my long hair, revealing the clear lines of my neck. The faint pink scar on my arm was exposed to the air, and I made no effort to conceal it. It was a part of me, a testament to that stormy night. And there was nothing to hide. The dinner was held at a rooftop restaurant in the city center, brilliantly lit and filled with elegantly dressed guests. Ms. Ju led me through the crowd, introducing me to several influential editors-in-chief and gallery owners. I tried my best to carry myself with grace. Neither haughty nor humble, when discussing design, I could sense a flicker of surprise and interest in their eyes. It felt good. Midway through, I stepped out to the terrace for some fresh air. The evening breeze, carrying the slight intoxication of early summer, swept away the clamor from the banquet hall. Just as I settled into place, a low, slightly surprised voice sounded behind me. Miss Su. I turned my head. Jiyu Huaishan. He wasn't wearing a white coat today. Instead, he was dressed in a well-tailored dark gray suit that accentuated his tall, slender figure, making him seem less like the aloof doctor and more like a composed businessman. He held a glass of champagne in his hand, his gaze fixed on me with clear surprise. Dr. Gu, I gave a slight nod. I hadn't expected to run into him here. I didn't expect to meet you here. He took a few steps closer, leaning against the railing. His gaze swept over my bare arms, lingering for a moment on the scar before quickly shifting away. It's a remarkable design. He was referring to my dress. Thank you. I paused, then added, I designed it myself. His eyebrows lifted slightly, as if surprised, but he said nothing. Silence stretched between us, yet it didn't feel awkward. Lu Xiang is awake, he suddenly spoke, his tone flat, as if stating an objective fact. I heard. My response was equally calm. Congratulations to him. Jiyu Huaishan turned his head to look at me. Under the night sky, his eyes appeared particularly profound. Miss Su Lingrue has been visiting frequently lately. Yes, they have a very good relationship. I took a glass of juice from the waiter's tray, my tone devoid of any fluctuation. He swirled the wine glass in his hand, the golden liquid creating fine ripples against the crystal wall. Xiang relies on her deeply, believing she is his light. I took a sip of the juice, the sweet and sour chilled liquid sliding down my throat. Light, yes, how long can a light built upon lies and the sacrifice of another person truly shine? Dr. Gu seems to be implying something. I looked up and met his gaze directly. Jiyu Huaishan locked eyes with me, his gaze both scrutinizing and carrying a trace of barely perceptible curiosity. I just think some coincidences are quite interesting. He didn't say it outright, but I understood what he meant. He was there the night of the car accident, he witnessed the chaos, the tragedy, and perhaps, he also noticed some details that others overlooked. For example, the difference in attire between those who are truly struggling to break through inside the car and those who are trembling in fear from a distance, for instance, who is covered in mud and bloodstains, and who merely has a slightly damp hem. There are many coincidences in this world. I lowered my eyelashes, concealing the emotions in my eyes. Sometimes, people only believe what they want to believe, just like Lu Xiang in the previous life. Jiyu Huaishan fell silent for a moment. How is your hand recovering? He changed the subject, almost back to normal. It doesn't affect my drawing. He nodded. That's good. Just then, Sister Ju waved to me from the entrance of the banquet hall. I said to Jiyu Huaishan, sorry, my colleague is looking for me. I'll excuse myself for a moment. Go ahead. I turned and walked away, feeling his gaze fixed on my back, carrying some unresolved doubt. Back in the banquet hall, Sister Ju asked me quietly, do you know Dr. Jiyu, his Lu Xian's close friend, and his family background is quite impressive. We're not really acquainted, we've only met once. I said lightly. Sister Ju didn't press further and continued to guide me through the social engagements. By the time the dinner ended, it was already late at night. I politely declined Ms. Ju's offer to drive me home and walked to the roadside to wait for a ride. A black Bentley slowly pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing Jiyu Huaishan's expressionless profile. I'm heading that way. Let me give you a ride. I was a bit surprised but shook my head. No need, the ride I called is almost here. At this time and in this area, it's hard to get a taxi. His tone was insistent, carrying an air of refusal. Get in the car, Miss Su. I hesitated for a moment. Then pulled the car door open and got in. The interior was filled with a faint scent of disinfectant and a cool, woody fragrance, very much like him. I gave the address of my old apartment, and without saying anything, he instructed the driver to start. Not a word was spoken along the way. It wasn't until the car stopped at the entrance of the neighborhood, and I thanked him and prepared to get out, that he spoke again. Miss Su. I turned my head. He looked at the heavy darkness ahead, his voice low. Relying on evasion and silence alone won't solve the problem. My heart skipped a beat. He really did know something. Or rather, he suspected. My hand, which was pulling the car door open, paused for a moment. Without turning back, my voice sounded particularly clear in the quiet compartment. Dr. Jiyu, sometimes. Not disturbing is the best way to let things be. I'm just an outsider. I'll just watch. With that, I got out of the car and walked into the dim light of the residential area without looking back. Let them have their happy ending, and let them have the path to the abyss that I so carefully laid out for them. Jiyu Huaishan's car remained parked in place for a long time before slowly driving away. In the rearview mirror, that slender yet upright figure gradually merged into the darkness, carrying a resolute and intriguing loneliness. Chapter 6. Lu Xian's body recovered very quickly. The aura of a tech prodigy, combined with the legendary notion that surviving a great disaster brings great fortune, has made him the center of heated discussion in the industry even before his official return. As Su Lingrui, the savior and fiancé, she naturally rode this wave of attention, frequently appearing in the push notifications of various gossip tabloids and social media platforms. Sun Wanfang now walks with a posture straighter than a ruler, boasting to everyone she meets about her daughter's kindness and good fortune, while subtly flaunting the soon-to-be acquired billions in shares and the status of being the young mistress of the Lu family. Even my father Su Ming's half-dead company has managed to ride this wave of momentum, securing several projects that were previously unimaginable. The house has almost become Su Lingrui's exclusive dressing room and makeup studio, with new gowns and jewelry delivered daily for her to choose from for various social events, all under the guise of visiting her fiancé. She seems to have fully embraced the role, carrying herself with a deliberately imitated elegance characteristic of high society. However, the vanity and lack of genuine confidence in her eyes occasionally betray a hint of her true self. I still leave early and return late. busy with the projects at the studio, MS. Ju is very satisfied with me. The initial samples of the Dawn series have turned out stunning, and she has already started planning a small internal preview event this afternoon. I finished work early for once and went home to pick up some reference materials. As soon as I pushed the door open, I heard Su Lingrue's tearful voice coming from the living room. I don't know what happened either. He suddenly started asking about that safety lock. My mind went completely blank, and I couldn't remember anything. Sun Wanfang's voice was tense. What did you say? I just said what we discussed earlier, that I was too scared at the time and couldn't remember the details. Su Lingrue's voice was filled with lingering fear, but the way Shi Yang looked at me, he seemed a little disappointed. Oh, what's the big deal? Sun Wanfang immediately encouraged her. In such a life-and-death situation, who can remember all those details? It's normal not to remember. The more scared you appear, the more it shows how much fear you had to overcome to save him. He'll only feel more sorry for you. Really? Su Lingrue was half convinced and half doubting. Of course it's true. Listen to your mom. I'm not wrong, Sun Wanfang said with certainty. Next time he asks, just say you were too worried about him to notice anything else. Men fall for that. I stood in the entryway, silently changing my shoes. The safety lock. That was one of the keys to the rescue. The deformed car door was jammed shut, and conventional methods couldn't open it. It was me who, after some fumbling, found the somewhat hidden mechanical lock and used a half-length steel bar picked up from the roadside to pry it open, thus releasing the first restraint. Although Lu Shiyang was barely conscious at the time, his physical sensations remained. He might have vaguely remembered someone struggling to do something beside him. Rather than just frantically pulling the car door as Su Lingrue described, it seems Lu Shiyang isn't as completely trusting as he appears on the surface. He's beginning to have doubts. This is an interesting start. I was about to take the documents back to my room when Su Lingrue spotted me with her sharp eyes. Sis. She called out to me, her tone carrying a hint of barely noticeable panic and misplaced anger. You're back just in time. Help me decide. The Lu family is having a gathering in a couple of days. Which dress do you think would be suitable for me to wear? She pointed to several haute couture gowns spread out on the sofa, trying to regain her composure and sense of superiority in front of me. I glanced at those overly extravagant dresses, my gaze calm. It's better for you to decide on your own. Little sister, I don't really understand these things. Right, Su Lingrue curled her lips slightly, deliberately shaking the new diamond bracelet on her wrist. Sis, you usually don't get to touch things of this caliber anyway. Never mind, I'll just ask my stylist instead. I couldn't be bothered with her childish provocation and turned to leave. Oh, by the way, sister, she spoke up again. Her voice raised slightly with obvious probing. That night, did you end up saying anything inappropriate to anyone else later? I stopped in my tracks and turned to look at her. Her eyes held a hidden tension, fixed intently on my mouth as if afraid I might utter some fatal truth. Sun Wanfang was also watching me warily. I suddenly smiled, very lightly, with a hint of an ambiguous tone. What exactly is my dear sister referring to? Are you talking about how bravely you rushed forward to save someone back then, or how you fearfully hid behind me, trembling? Su Lingrue's face instantly turned deathly pale. Su Qingwu, Sun Wanfang shouted sharply, shut your mouth. I withdrew my smile, my eyes turning cold. Don't worry, I have no interest in meddling in your affairs. You can put on your little act, and I'll go my own way. Just don't come bothering me. After saying that, I didn't look at them again and went straight back to my room, closing the door. I could still hear Sun Wanfang's hushed words of comfort and Su Lingrue's tearful complaints from outside. I walked to the window and looked out at the grey sky. Lu Xiang is starting to test the waters. This indicates that he has subconsciously begun to doubt Su Lingrue's explanation. Once the seed of doubt is planted, it quietly grows in the darkness. Su Lingrue's panic and lack of confidence will only accelerate this process. And me, I only need to continue being a quiet observer. In their carefully woven web of lies, I don't even need to be the one to expose it. The truth itself carries sharp edges. Just wait. Wait for Lu Xiang to reach out, step by step, to touch and verify it himself, waiting for that love and gratitude built on quicksand to crumble on its own. I'm looking forward to seeing what Su Lingrui can come up with to maintain her halo as a savior, when she can no longer even use the excuse of being too scared to remember the details clearly. And as for Lu Xiang, when he discovers that the light he believed in is not only dim but possibly even stolen, what kind of terrifying destructive force will his obsessive repayment of gratitude turn into? Chapter 7, The Internal Preview of the Daybreak series was held in an art space converted from an old warehouse. The rough concrete walls and exposed metal pipes complemented the sharp thorns and the broken yet reassembled rose elements in the series design. Cold white spotlights illuminated the displayed sample garments and design sketches, outlining powerful and dynamic lines. I was wearing a modified studio sample, a minimalist white shirt with stiff material shaping subtle contours at the shoulders, like silent armor. Sister Ju insisted that I be present as a designer to handle any potential inquiries. More guests attended than expected, in addition to fashion media and buyers. There were also some highly respected critics and collectors from the industry. The atmosphere was lively, with hushed conversations, admiring glances, and occasional exclamations of praise. I try to make myself invisible in the corner, observing people's reactions to Dawn. When I see someone lingering in front of my design sketches for a long time or expressing admiration for the details of a sample garment, a subtle sense of satisfaction arises in my heart. This feeling is genuine and grounding. It's a value created by my own hands, completely different from that home filled with lies and schemes. A very expressive piece of work. A somewhat familiar voice sounded beside me. I turned my head and saw Jiyu Huaishan again. He was dressed very casually today, in a dark cashmere sweater and khaki trousers, which didn't clash too much with the highly artistic surroundings. He wasn't holding champagne, just a glass of water. And his gaze was fixed on the main visual of thorns entwining roses on the display board behind me. Dr. Jiyu is also interested in fashion. I was a bit surprised, as this didn't seem to be within his usual scope of activities. I came with a friend. He gestured toward a man dressed in avant-garde style who was chatting happily with Sister Ju not far away. He's in the arts and dragged me along to make up the numbers. He paused, then turned his gaze to me. However, your designs are more sharp than I imagined. Life forces us to have some thorns to protect ourselves, I said half-jokingly, my tone indifferent. Jiyu Huaishan glanced at me deeply but didn't respond, instead asking, "How have you been lately?" "Pretty good." I knew what he was referring to and answered smoothly. "The studio projects are going well, and at home, my sister's wedding preparations are in full swing. Everything is going wonderfully." "Is that so?" His tone was flat, revealing no emotion. "I went to see Shiyang the day before yesterday. He's recovering well and can already handle some simple company matters." Miss Su Lingrui was by his side, very attentive. He deliberately added a subtle pause on the word considerate. I smiled but said nothing. Considerate in serving tea and water, or considerate in covering up loopholes. However, Jiyu Huaishan changed the tone of his voice, lowering it slightly. He seems to be growing increasingly fixated on certain details, for instance, the tools used during the rescue, or whether the rescuer's hands bore any noticeable scars. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively curled my right hand slightly. The scar on my arm had faded, but the thin calluses on my fingertips, left from long hours of drawing and the excessive strain that night, were still there. Su Lingrui's hands are meticulously maintained, smooth and flawless, without a single blemish. It seems young Master Lu has indeed recovered well. With energy to dwell on such trivial details, I said, my tone unchanged, "I hope my sister can handle it." Jiyu Huaishan's deep, penetrating eyes watched me, as if trying to uncover something beneath my calm and unruffled expression. Just then, a slight commotion arose at the entrance. I looked up, my pupils slightly contracting. Lu Xiang. He was dressed in a well-tailored dark suit, with a classic-style cashmere coat draped over it. His face still showed some paleness from blood loss, but his posture was upright, and between his brows carried the sharpness of a tech elite mixed with a hint of gloom from his recent illness. On his arm was Su Lingrui, dressed in full regalia, her smile as radiant as a flower. Why are they here? Su Lingrui clearly hadn't expected to see me here either. The smile on her face froze for a moment before she tightened her grip on Lu Xian's arm, as if declaring her sovereignty. Sister Ju had already stepped forward to greet them. Her attitude warm yet measured. Lu Xiang was a rising star in the tech industry, and with his company's cutting-edge image, it wasn't surprising to see him involved in cross-industry collaborations with the fashion world. However, bringing his fiancée to such a small-scale independent designer preview was rather intriguing. Lu Xian's gaze swept across the exhibition hall with his usual scrutiny. When his eyes passed over the main visual and landed on me, they noticeably paused. His expression was complex. There was unfamiliarity, curiosity, and a hint of something faint, perhaps even a trace of doubt that he himself might not have been aware of. Su Lingrui followed his gaze and spotted me, immediately flashing a sweet smile as she pulled Lu Xiang over. "Sis, what a coincidence. Why are you here too?" Her tone was surprised, as if I were just an outsider who shouldn't appear in such a setting. "I work here." My tone was flat. "Work?" Su Lingrui blinked, feigning innocence. "Are you here as a part-time waitress?" "Oh, sis, if you're short on money, you could just tell the family. Why go through all this trouble?" "Lingrui," Lu Xiang interrupted her softly, but his gaze remained fixed on my face, scrutinizing. "Who is this? He really doesn't remember me, or rather, there is no clear presence of me in his memory." Su Lingrui quickly introduced. "Xiang, this is my sister, Su Qingwu." "Sister, this is Xiang, Miss Su." Lu Xiang nodded slightly. Perfectly polite yet extremely distant. "Pleased to meet you, Mr. Lu," I responded with the same distance. His gaze lingered on my face for a few seconds, as if searching for some sense of familiarity, but in the end, he found nothing and turned to look at the display board behind me. "These designs are quite distinctive, thank you." I stepped aside to make space, seeing Lu Xian's attention drawn to the designs. Su Lingrui was somewhat displeased and interrupted. "Xiang, this style is too sharp, it's uncomfortable to look at. Let's go check out the other side instead. My friend is waiting for us." She tried to pull him away, but Lu Xiang stood still, his eyes fixed on a corner of the display board where a detail image was placed. A design sketch of thorn elements wrapped around a wrist guard, with a few brief design concepts written beside it. Flowers bloom from broken places, with scars as medals. His brow furrowed almost imperceptibly, and his gaze returned to me, this time with a more obvious curiosity. "Miss Su, are you a designer?" "Yes, the concept is quite unique." He paused, then suddenly asked, "Miss Su, do you believe in karma?" My heart tightened abruptly. "Cause and effect, of course I believe it. I believe that the debts Lu Xiang owes will eventually be repaid. I believe that the luck Su Lingrui stole will ultimately backfire." I watched their figures standing together, one filled with doubt, testing the waters step by step, the other feigning calm, full of flaws. Then, I slowly revealed a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Believe," I met his probing gaze, my voice clear and calm. "I have always believed that karma is a cycle, and retribution never fails. It's not that it hasn't come, but that the time has not yet arrived." Lu Xian's eyes suddenly deepened, Su Lingrui's face turned slightly pale, and she instinctively tightened her grip on his arm. Jiyu Huaishan stood not far away, taking in the entire scene. He raised his water glass, concealing a knowing curve at the corner of his lips. The lights at the preview event remained cold and white, illuminating the subtle expressions on everyone's faces. Chapter 8. After the preview event, the atmosphere at home became somewhat delicate. Su Lingrui seemed to perceive Lu Xian's attention to design as a potential threat. She no longer simply flaunted her jewelry and dates but began to emphasize more frequently in front of me the depth of her relationship with Lu Xiang. "Xiang said he likes me best in champagne color. It makes me look gentle. Yesterday I accompanied him to meet a client, and he held my hand the entire time. Auntie said that once we get married, she'll transfer the villa in Nanwan under my name." I usually just listen, occasionally responding with a perfunctory Focusing more on the design draft in my hands, the Dawn series has been well received. And Sister Ju has already started discussing collaboration plans for the next quarter with me. The real turning point happened on a Saturday afternoon. Sun Wanfeng directed the hourly worker to do a thorough cleaning, focusing on clearing out the storage cabinet in the living room that was piled with miscellaneous items. Su Lingrui and Lu Shiyang went to a private gallery, reportedly to select decorative paintings for the engagement banquet. I locked myself in my room to revise the design drawings. From outside came Sun Wanfeng's slightly impatient voice. Do you still want all these messy old things? Qingwu, come here and take a look. Is this bag yours? I pushed the door open and went out, only to see Sun Wanfeng holding an old canvas bag covered in dried mud stains, its edges even slightly torn, with a look of disgust on her face. It was my bag. The bag from that stormy night. My heart gave a sudden, erratic thump in my chest. Keeping a straight face, I walked over and took it. It's mine. I forgot to deal with it, Sun Wanfeng muttered. Throw it away quickly. It's taking up space. Who knows which garbage dump you picked it up from? She turned around and went back to rummaging for other things. I stood there holding that light yet heavy bag. The blood-stained clothes and torn gloves inside had been quietly disposed of shortly after I was reborn. I didn't need these as evidence. They would only bring trouble upon myself. But my fingers traced over an inconspicuous hidden pocket on the outside of the backpack. Before being reborn, I used to keep some small items that might be needed at any moment there. A lipstick, a few hairpins, and my fingertip touched a hard square object. It was that disposable waterproof camera's memory card. Memories suddenly flooded back. Before the car accident, I had gone to the outskirts of the city to photograph some dilapidated buildings for a studio project, using this old but durable and waterproof camera. After the accident, the camera was probably lost in the chaos or cleared away as trash. I had completely forgotten about the existence of this memory card. How did it end up here? Did I subconsciously slip it in at the time? Or did I unintentionally put it in later while tidying up my things? I clenched the small memory card tightly, my nails almost digging into my palm. Could there be something inside? I immediately returned to my room, locked the door, and rummaged out an old, multifunctional card reader from the depths of a drawer that hadn't been used for years. My fingers trembled slightly with a certain premonition. I inserted the memory card into the card reader and connected it to the computer. The folder contained dozens of architectural photos taken that afternoon, with a stark composition that carried a sense of decaying beauty. I quickly scrolled through with the mouse wheel until the screen went dark. The next few photos were extremely dim, with shaky and blurry images, full of chaotic noise. It was a stormy night. The shaky camera captured twisted metal, shattered glass, rain flowing freely, and a shocking sight of dark red. My heart skipped a beat for a moment. I saw it. In an extremely blurry yet faintly discernible photo, a slender figure is half leaning into the deformed driver's seat, their arm taut with effort, the sleeve rolled up to the elbow, and on the forearm, there is a dark mark that still appears glaring even in the dim light. Not far behind this figure, in the curtain of rain, a person in a light-colored dress, looking out of place at the scene, is covering their face with both hands, their body curled into a ball. Another photo captures the hand gripping a steel bar, forcefully prying at something. The knuckles are white from the strain. The fabric wrapped around the fingertips is already worn through, covered in mud and dark stains. The quality of the photos is poor, and the composition is even more chaotic. Entirely the result of unintentional actions in the midst of disorder. But it is enough. These blurry images, like a rusty key, suddenly pried open the floodgates of deliberately forgotten memories. That man struggling in despair and agony, his broken moans, the sting of cold rain hitting his face, the sharp pain of metal cutting through flesh, and the faint, continuous sobs and fear belonging to Su Lingrui behind him. I yanked out the card reader, leaned back in my chair, and gasped for air. Cold sweat soaked through my back. So, the evidence has been here all along. In this unexpected way, it silently recorded a fragment of that night. In my previous life, if I had found it, no, there are no what ifs. In my previous life, I was blinded by anger and resentment. recklessly confronting others with only the blood-stained clothes and gloves as proof, only to end up battered and bruised, even if I had these photos. Under Lu Xian's preconceived biases, they would only be twisted into another ironclad proof of my scheming, but now, it's different. I carefully backed up the photos from the memory card to several different encrypted cloud storage services, then hid the physical card and card reader again. I don't need to release these immediately, the timing isn't right yet. Let Su Lingrui enjoy her stolen glory a little longer. Let Lu Xian's suspicions ferment a bit more intensely, until they stand at the highest point, until that highly anticipated engagement banquet, until all the beautiful dreams woven from lies reach their peak. I'm very curious to know what kind of avalanche will be triggered when these vague yet fatal images appear at the most opportune moment. I turned off the computer and walked to the window. The sunset dyed the sky a bloody red. Chapter 9. The Lu family's engagement banquet was overwhelmingly extravagant. The venue was chosen at the Lu family's most exclusive private hotel, with the entire banquet hall and the lakeside garden reserved, even before the invitations were sent out. It had already caused a stir within their social circle. After all, this was Lu Xian's first major celebration since surviving a life-threatening ordeal, carrying a hint of the mystical notion of warding off bad luck with joy. It was also the Lu family's public affirmation of their future daughter-in-law's status. Su Lingrui threw herself fully into preparation mode. Every day was either spent at the spa or trying out makeup and hairstyles. Her gown was altered 3 times. And she even changed the nail polish color to match her outfit 5 or 6 times. Sun Wanfang and my father were equally energized, busy customizing their attire for the banquet and practicing social etiquette as if they were attending a state dinner. The house was filled with congratulatory gifts, ranging from jewelry to antique decorations, creating a dazzling display. Su Lingrui basked in the feeling of being the center of attention, occasionally condescendingly asking me, "Sis, what do you think of this necklace with my main gown?" Or, "Sis, you have to come to the engagement party too, although, well, I'll have the stylist give you a simple touch-up as well." Each time, I would just give a casual glance, say it's fine or no need, and then go back to minding my own business. The Dawn series has officially gone into production, and Sister Ju gave me a short vacation. I didn't tell anyone and used the time to take on 2 freelance jobs. The money I earned was enough for me to rent a small apartment not far from the studio. I already have the keys, just waiting for the right moment to move out. 3 days before the engagement banquet, the Lu family sent over the invitations. The gilded cover was so exquisite it looked like a work of art. When Sun Wanfang took it, her hands trembled as she repeatedly traced the names on it. Sincerely inviting Miss Su Lingrui and family, she handed one to me as well, her tone condescending. "Here, this one's for you. When the time comes, stick with us, say as little as possible, and don't embarrass Lingrui." I took it without even looking and casually placed it on the coffee table. That evening, I received a call from Jiyu Huaishan. His number had somehow been saved in my phone. "Will you be attending the engagement banquet?" He got straight to the point, his voice sounding somewhat low over the line. "The invitation was delivered, so I suppose I will." My tone was flat. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Shi Yang recently asked me some questions about post-traumatic stress disorder, Jiyu Huaishan said, his voice carrying the calmness typical of a doctor. "It seems he suspects that his memory of certain fragments from the night of the car accident might be distorted or incomplete." "Oh," I raised an eyebrow. "How did Dr. Jiyu respond?" I told him that in cases of severe trauma and high stress, memory confusion and even fabrication are possible. He paused, but it seems he didn't fully accept that explanation. I could almost picture Lu Xiang frowning, trying to piece together the truth from those vague and painful memory fragments. His suspicion toward Su Lingrui had shifted from unconscious probing to conscious verification. "This is good. It seems young Master Lu is someone who likes to get to the bottom of things," I said. "He is very stubborn." Jiyu Huaishan's tone was flat. "Especially when it comes to things he believes in, for example, believing that Su Lingrui is his light, for example, believing that I am a fraud, then let him keep investigating." I smiled lightly, my voice soft. who knows, there might be a surprise. Jiyu Huaishan fell silent on the other end of the line for a moment before finally saying just one sentence. See you at the engagement banquet. After hanging up the phone, I looked out the window at the city's neon lights. Surprise. Of course there will be. I turned on the computer and opened that encrypted folder. Inside lay those few blurry yet crucial photos. I took out a brand new, unregistered USB drive from the drawer and copied one of the photos onto it. The photo only captured that hand, covered in wounds and mud, forcefully prying the steel bar, along with the blurred, huddled light-colored figure in the background. It didn't show my full face, but it was enough to make the point. Then, I logged into an overseas proxy server and registered a brand new, anonymous email account. After doing all this, I turned off the computer. It wasn't time yet. This key must be turned in the most crucial lock to achieve its maximum effectiveness. The day before the engagement banquet, Su Lingrui tried on her dress for the final time. It was a modified haute couture wedding gown, airlifted from Paris, adorned with tiny diamonds that shimmered under the light, so exquisite it was breathtaking. She stood in front of the large floor-to-ceiling mirror in the living room, with Sun Wanfang and my father surrounding her, showering her with endless praise. So beautiful, our Linga is truly a born princess. Tomorrow, you will definitely be the most dazzling star. Su Lingrui looked at her incredibly luxurious reflection in the mirror, a dreamy smile spreading across her face. She turned around, her gaze sweeping over me as I sat on the sofa flipping through a design magazine. A triumphant curve forming at the corner of her lips. Sister, you must watch closely tomorrow, she said in a sweet voice, yet with a sharp edge to it. See for yourself what true happiness looks like. My happiness. I closed the magazine, lifted my head, and calmly met her gaze. The mirror reflects the two of us. One adorned in lavish attire, sparkling with jewels, like a queen about to be crowned, the other barefaced and simply dressed, like a Cinderella who has stumbled into the palace. But I know who is truly the one dancing on the edge of the cliff. All right, I curl the corners of my lips slightly, revealing a faint, almost imperceptible smile. I will be sure to watch carefully, watching how your beautiful dream rises to its peak, and then, how it came crashing down. Su Lingrui, enjoy your final feast to the fullest. Chapter 10. On the day of the engagement banquet, the weather was unbelievably perfect. The sky was as clear as if washed, and the sunlight cast a dazzling golden edge over the Liu family's luxurious, palace-like hotel. The lakeside garden was decorated into a snow-white dream world, with flowers, gauze curtains, and crystal chandeliers. Every detail showcased the Liu family's wealth and the importance they placed on this wedding. Media reporters had long been waiting on both sides of the red carpet, their cameras aimed at the entrance, eager to capture the happy moments of the tech tycoon and his lifesaver. Sun Wanfang and my father were dressed in expensive attire, both nervous and excited, closely following the radiant Su Lingrui, who shone like a princess. Su Lingrui wore a dress studded with diamonds, along with the Liu family heirloom ring and a matching set of diamond jewelry added for the occasion. She held Liu Xian's arm, her face displaying just the right mix of shyness and happiness. Liu Xiang was still in a sharply tailored black suit, his complexion slightly rosier than before, but the lingering gloom between his brows seemed even deeper. He cooperated with the media's photos, occasionally responding to Su Lingrui's whispers with a smile, but the warmth of that smile never reached his eyes. I was wearing a simple black knee-length dress, a studio sample lent to me by Sister Ju. The tailoring was impeccable. But amidst all the glitter and glamour, its simplicity bordered on shabby. I quietly followed behind my family, like an insignificant shadow, unnoticed by anyone. Entering the banquet hall, it was a scene of elegant dresses and clinking glasses. Celebrities and socialites gathered, the air thick with the scent of champagne, perfume, and insincere pleasantries. Su Lingrui was the center of attention, surrounded by the Liu family's relatives and various guests. Receiving waves of compliments and blessings, Sun Wanfang and my father quickly blended in, chatting and laughing with those usually unapproachable figures, their faces glowing with unprecedented pride. I found the most inconspicuous corner to sit in, holding a glass of juice. Coldly observing this extravagant feast, Jiyu Huaishan was also present. As Lu Xian's close friend, he was dressed in formal attire, mingling among the guests. His gaze occasionally swept over the corner where I stood. Carrying a hint of barely noticeable attention, the ceremony began. The host narrated the thrilling car accident in an emotional tone, depicting Su Lingrue's bravery and selflessness, and shaping her love with Lu Xiang into a legendary tale. The guests below the stage let out gasps of admiration and murmurs of emotion. Su Lingrue, seizing the moment, let tears well up in her eyes and nestled close to Lu Xiang, appearing delicate and dependent, as Lu Xiang listened to the host's narration. The muscles on his face seemed to tighten slightly. When the host asked, "Miss Su, what were you thinking when you disregarded your own safety and desperately tried to save Mr. Lu?" Su Lingrue, following the rehearsed script, replied with a choked voice, "I wasn't thinking about anything. I just knew I couldn't let anything happen to him." A warm round of applause erupted from the audience. I noticed, however, that Lu Xian's hand holding the wine glass had slightly whitened knuckles. The moment to exchange engagement rings had arrived. The huge screen projected a sweet photo of the couple, and the host announced in an excited voice, "Let us all witness this perfect pair as they make their eternal vows." At this very moment, all the lights in the banquet hall suddenly dimmed, leaving only the main stage and the massive screen illuminated. A slight stir rippled through the crowd of guests. Immediately, the sweet photo on the screen vanished, replaced by an extremely blurry, noise-filled picture. The photo was dimly lit, with a background of twisted metal and shattered glass, clearly the scene of a car accident. In the center of the image, a slender hand covered in mud and dark stains was gripping a piece of rebar, desperately prying something open. The glove on that hand was worn through, exposing the fingertips, where clear wounds were visible. In the blurred background of the photo, a figure in a light-colored dress was crouching, hands covering her face, forming a stark contrast with the figure struggling to rescue someone in the foreground. Below the photo, a simple line of white text appeared, like a cold footnote: "Who is saving lives, and who is just watching?" The entire banquet hall was as silent as death. Everyone was stunned, staring in disbelief at the photo on the screen, a stark contrast to the sweet atmosphere, filled with brutal truth. Su Lingrue's face drained of all color in an instant, her pupils contracted sharply. Overwhelming terror left her body rigid, and even her breathing stopped. Sun Wanfang and my father were also shocked, their mouths agape like ducks being choked. Lu Xiang abruptly turned his head, his gaze shooting like a sharp arrow toward the photo on the screen, then swiftly turning to Su Lingrue beside him, whose face was deathly pale and who looked on the verge of collapse, the calm on his face completely shattered, replaced by a mix of fury and disbelief at being deceived and made a fool of. "No, it's not. This isn't real." Su Lingrue finally snapped back to reality, her voice sharp and trembling, carrying a sob as she tried to grab Lu Xian's arm. "Xiang, listen to me. This is fake. Someone is setting me up." Lu Xiang violently shook off her hand with such force that Su Lingrue staggered and nearly fell. He stared at her intently, his eyes as cold as the biting wind of Siberia. His voice squeezed through gritted teeth. "Explain, Su Lingrue. Tell me, whose hand is this?" He pointed to the bruised and battered hand on the screen, straining desperately to rescue someone. That hand was definitely not Su Lingrue's well-maintained, delicate, and smooth hand. It's. Su Lingrue was incoherent, the immense fear nearly causing her to collapse. Instinctively, she looked desperately in my direction. In an instant, almost everyone's gaze followed her line of sight and focused on me in the corner. I remained quietly seated there, holding the half-finished glass of juice in my hand, my face expressionless, as calm as if the earth-shattering turmoil unfolding before me had nothing to do with me. Only Jiyu Huaishan, who was closest to me, might have seen it, the fleeting, cold and cruel curve at the corner of my lips the moment I lowered my lashes. The lights suddenly all turned on, the photo on the screen also vanished, as if everything that had just happened was merely an illusion. But the deathly silent and eerie atmosphere in the banquet hall, Su Lingrue's pale face, Lu Xian's livid expression and the seething anger in his eyes, as well as the uncertain, whispering expressions on all the guests' faces, all indicated. This meticulously planned engagement banquet, this magnificent dream built upon lies, it's all over, the fall has begun. Chapter 11, Dead Silence. A suffocating dead silence enveloped the entire banquet hall. A few seconds later, a buzzing murmur surged like a tide, quickly growing noisy and piercing. Everyone's gazes swept back and forth between the distraught Su Lingrui, the stone-faced Lu Xiang, and the expressionless me in the corner, probing, doubting, shocked, gloating. All kinds of emotions intertwined into a massive net, firmly trapping the perfect couple at the center of the stage. What's going on? That photo, that hand, clearly doesn't belong to Miss Su, the one in the background who looks terrified. That's her, right? Oh my God, could it be that the lifesaver is fake? The Lu family has really lost face this time. The voices of discussion mercilessly drilled into Su Lingrui's ears, her entire body trembled like a leaf in the wind. And tears smeared her exquisite makeup. She wanted to grab Lu Xiang again, her voice broken and fragmented. Xiang, it's not like that, listen to me, it was sister, it must have been sister, she was jealous of me. She fabricated those photos, she hates me. Lu Xiang violently shook her off. The force was so great that Su Lingrui directly fell and sat on the cold ground, her diamond-studded dress splayed out around her, like a gaudy flower abruptly withered. The way he looked at her no longer held the slightest warmth, only the disgust and iciness left after being utterly deceived. Forgery. Lu Xian's voice wasn't loud, but it carried a terrifying pressure that spread through the suddenly quiet hall. Su Lingrui, even now, you're still lying. He no longer looked at her, but turned his gaze to me. That look was indescribably complex. There was shock, scrutiny, overwhelming anger, and a trace of a subtle wavering that even he himself couldn't understand. Su, Qing, Wu, he practically gritted out my name between his teeth. All eyes were once again focused on me. I set down the juice glass and slowly stood up. The black dress appeared even more serene under the dazzling lights. Standing in stark contrast to the surrounding chaos, I met his gaze without evasion, without fear, and without the triumph of a victor, only a deep, unfathomable calm. Mr. Lu, I nodded slightly. With perfect courtesy, yet distant as a stranger, that photograph. Lu Xiang stared fixedly at me, trying to detect any trace of flaw on my face. Was it your doing? I don't understand what Mr. Lu is referring to. My tone remained calm. I'm merely a guest who happened to witness some interesting scenes. You're lying. Su Lingrui on the ground screamed through her tears. It was you. You resent me for stealing your spotlight. You set me up. Xiang, don't believe her. Sun Wanfang and my father finally snapped out of it, scrambling over frantically. Sun Wanfang wanted to help Su Lingrui, but a single icy glare from Lu Xiang pinned her in place. Su Ming's face turned deathly pale as he tried to smooth things over. Elu, young master, this must be a misunderstanding. Someone must have sabotaged it. How could Linger possibly? Shut up. Lu Xiang cut him off sharply, his gaze sweeping like a blade over my so-called family before finally settling back on my face. You know the truth, that wasn't a question, it was a statement. I looked at him, at this man who had personally pushed me into the abyss in my previous life, now with shock, anger, and uncertainty swirling in his eyes. The thrill of revenge surged through my limbs like a fine electric current, but it quickly cooled, settling into a deeper chill. The truth, I repeated softly, a faint, almost cruel curve lifting the corner of my lips. The truth is, Mr. Lu, the light you believe in doesn't seem to be as brave and selfless as you imagined. My words landed like an invisible slap, striking Lu Xiang hard across the face and resonating in the hearts of everyone present. Whether they were in the know or not, his jaw tightened, his gaze turning frighteningly dark. Su Lingrui couldn't bear the shock and let out a piercing scream. Then her eyes rolled back and she fainted on the spot. Linger, Sun Wanfang rushed over, weeping and wailing in despair. The scene was in chaos. The Lu parents' faces were ashen as they struggled to maintain order, arranging for guests to be evacuated and handling the aftermath. What should have been a perfect engagement banquet ended in a shocking scandal and farce. I was swept along by the surging crowd, moving outward. As I passed by Jiu Huaishan, he said in a low voice. Quite a commotion. I turned my head and glanced at him. His face showed no expression, but there was no surprise in his eyes, only a kind of understanding that said, as expected, just the beginning. I replied softly, then merged into the departing crowd, stepping out of the hotel. The evening breeze carried a chill against my face. Behind me was the still chaotic and noisy banquet hall, while before me lay the brightly lit city. I took out my phone, deleted that anonymous email account, and cleared all traces of my actions. Then, I called the moving company. Tomorrow morning at 8, please be on time. After hanging up, I took a deep breath of the cold air. Su Lingrue's social death has begun. Lu Xian's trust has also begun to crumble. Chapter 12. I moved into the small rented apartment. The space isn't large, but it gets plenty of natural light and is clean and tidy. Most importantly, this place is entirely my own, free from suffocating hypocrisy and scheming. Using the money I had saved up and the income from freelance work, I bought basic furniture and arranged the books and design drafts I brought with me in their proper places. Outside the window is the typical view of residential buildings, occasionally filled with the sounds of neighbors talking and children playing, brimming with the atmosphere of everyday life. Sitting at my bright and clean work desk, sketching new design drafts, I feel a sense of inner peace I've never experienced before. My phone is set to Do Not Disturb mode, but whenever I pick it up, I still see dozens of missed calls and countless messages. They're from Sun Wanfang, from my dad, from some unfamiliar numbers, probably the Lu family trying to reach me, and even a few from Su Lingrue, starting with hysterical curses, then turning into tearful pleas, and finally descending into incoherent despair. I didn't reply to any of them and simply blocked them all. The internet and gossip tabloids have exploded. Shocking turn at the Lu family heir's engagement banquet. Identity of the lifesaver in question. Stunning reversal. Was there someone else who saved the day on that stormy night? Cinderella actually a liar. The complete collapse of Su Lingrue's persona. Lu Xiang publicly humiliated. How can the tech tycoon save face? Sensational headlines, accompanied by blurry videos and photos leaked from the engagement banquet. Despite the Lu family's efforts to suppress them, there were simply too many people present to keep it under wraps, along with the ambiguous yet damning rescue scene photo that sparked the controversy, spread like wildfire online. Su Lingrue became the target of widespread online condemnation. Labels like green TB *TCH, liar, imposter, and scheming woman were firmly attached to her. Her carefully crafted image of being kind, brave, and not materialistic became the biggest joke, backfiring on her with extraordinary force. The stock price of the Lu Group was affected, experiencing several days of volatile decline. Lu Xiang, in particular, was thrust into the spotlight, facing a flood of sympathy, mockery, and skepticism from all directions. For a man as proud as him, being publicly humiliated in such a manner undoubtedly provoked immense anger and embarrassment. According to some scattered pieces of information, after Su Lingrue was stimulated and fainted at the engagement banquet and was sent to the hospital, she woke up in a semi-collapsed state, refusing to see anyone, including Sun Wanfang and my father. The Lu family quickly withdrew all the resources and protection originally allocated to her, adopting a cold attitude with a clear intention to draw a line. Life must not be easy for Sun Wanfang and my father either. Their dream of climbing up by attaching themselves to the Lu family has completely shattered, and they have to endure pointing fingers from all directions as well as the Lu family's displaced anger. I heard that my father's small company, which had just started to pick up, has already lost several orders in a row and is now in a precarious situation. I only catch glimpses of these pieces of information occasionally from Sister Ju or online push notifications, and I feel completely unmoved inside. You reap what you sow. Everything they are suffering today is merely the bitter fruit of the evil seeds they planted in the past. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Jiu Huaishan standing outside. He was wearing a simple shirt and trousers. With a hint of fatigue on his face, I hesitated for a moment, then opened the door. "Dr. just passing by, thought I'd drop in," he said it naturally, handing over a paper bag. "Bought some coffee downstairs, so I brought you a cup, thanks." I took the paper bag and stepped aside to let him in. The apartment was small, with everything visible at a glance. He glanced around the tidy space and the work desk by the window, where unfinished design drafts were still spread out. "Nice place," he commented. "It's nothing compared to Dr.'s home, just a barely adequate place to live." I placed the coffee on the small side table, making no move to sit down. The hint was obvious. Gu Huaishan didn't seem to mind. Standing in the center of the living room, he got straight to the point. "Shi Yang is investigating you." I wasn't surprised in the slightest. Investigating me for what? Forging photos? Or for deliberately trying to ruin his engagement? Everything. Gu Huaishan looked at me, his gaze sharp. He's using every connection at his disposal. Investigating your past, your social circle, your relationship with Lingrui. Every possible detail from that night. Then investigate. My tone was indifferent. The innocent have nothing to fear. His current state is not good. Gu Huaishan frowned slightly. He's angry, paranoid, hardly sleeping or resting. He can't accept being fooled like this, and even more, he can't accept that he might have mistaken the person from the very beginning. He said this last sentence very slowly, with a hint of probing. I looked up and met his gaze. "Gu, do you think he made a mistake?" Gu Huaishan remained silent for a moment, not answering directly, but said, "That night, when I arrived at the scene, the rescue was nearly over. You were covered in mud and blood, with many cuts on your arms and hands, standing alone in the rain, watching the ambulance leave. Su Lingrui was wrapped in a clean blanket, crying in her mother's arms." He stated the facts, his gaze falling on the scars on my arms and hands that had now faded to a light pink. "At the time, I thought you were a passerby who was frightened or had minor injuries." He paused. "Looking back now, I might have misjudged." I neither admitted nor denied it, simply picked up the cup of coffee and took a sip. The slightly bitter liquid slid down my throat. He couldn't find any evidence of me fabricating it. I set down the coffee cup, my voice calm. "Because the photo is real." Gu Huaishan's eyes flickered slightly, as for whether he recognized the wrong person. I walked to the door, adopting a posture of seeing him out. That's a question he should find the answer to himself, not by asking an outsider like me. Gu Huaishan gave me a deep look, as if trying to dig out something more from beneath my expressionless face. In the end, he said nothing, nodded, and turned to leave. I closed the door and leaned against it. "Lu Xiang is investigating me. Good. The deeper he digs, the closer he gets to the truth. And the more clearly he will realize how blind and foolish he was back then. His current anger and paranoia are nothing more than a small interest payment for the harm he caused me in his previous life." Chapter 13. It was a Tuesday evening when Lu Xiang showed up at my door. The sky was overcast, with a fine, cold rain falling. I had just finished a video conference with Sister Ju, finalizing the last few details of the new series. The doorbell rang, urgent and almost rude. Through the peephole, I saw a face that was both familiar and strange. Lu Xiang. He had lost some weight, his cheeks were sunken, with heavy dark circles under his eyes, and his stubble was not well groomed. His expensive suit jacket was casually left open, the collar of his shirt underneath slightly askew, exuding an air of exhaustion from anxiety and obsession. The rain had soaked his hair and shoulders, making him look less like the high-flying tech tycoon and more like a beast trapped in a snare, on the verge of losing control. There were no assistants or bodyguards following him. He was alone. I paused for a few seconds, then opened the door. "Mr. Lu." My tone was distant as I stood blocking the doorway, showing no intention of letting him in. His gaze was like a hook, firmly fixed on my face, trying to extract the answers he wanted from my subtlest expressions. In his eyes, there was lingering anger, deep suspicion, and something else, a nearly desperate search that even he himself was unwilling to acknowledge. "That photo," he began, his voice hoarse and low from days of sleeplessness, "was sent by you. This time, It was a definitive statement, carrying an undeniable accusation. "Where's the evidence?" I calmly retorted. "No evidence is needed." He took a sudden step forward, closing in on me, radiating an intense pressure all around. "Su Qingwu, I know it was you. You resent Lingrui for taking credit that should have been yours, you resent me for marrying her, so you chose that moment, that method, to get your revenge." I looked at his face, slightly contorted with agitation, and suddenly found it somewhat laughable. "Mr. Liu, have you misunderstood something?" I tilted my head slightly, a trace of undisguised mockery in my eyes. "Resentment? Why would I resent? I should be thanking Su Lingrui." He froze, clearly not expecting that to be my reaction. "Thank her," he repeated, as if he didn't understand the meaning of the word. "Yeah." I tugged at the corner of my mouth, the smile cold. "Thank her for taking on the title of savior in my place. Thank her for drawing all the attention and trouble from the Liu family. It allowed me to live my life quietly and focus on the design work I love." "See," I turned slightly so he could see the tidy, cozy little apartment behind me. "I'm doing just fine now." Lu Xian's pupils constricted sharply. My calm demeanor and the fact that I was doing just fine were clearly harder for him to accept than any fierce rebuttal. It was a silent declaration that he and everything he represented were worthless in my eyes, even something I needed to get rid of, a trouble. "You're lying," he growled, his gaze growing even more sinister. "If you didn't care, why would you hide those photos? Why expose everything at the engagement party? You clearly planned this all along." "I found the photos by accident," I replied, my tone still calm. "As for why they appeared at the engagement party, perhaps it was a passerby who couldn't stand to watch. Or, perhaps it's karma, retribution finally catching up." I stared into his eyes and said, word by word, "Lu Xiang, you keep accusing me of scheming, but have you ever stopped to think? Why couldn't Su Lingrui even recall the most basic details of the rescue? Why are her hands smooth and flawless, without a single scar? And why is the person in the photo, the one cowering in fear, wearing the exact same dress she had on that night?" Each question struck like a hammer, smashing against the fragile, crumbling beliefs he was desperately trying to uphold. His face grew increasingly pale, and his breathing became heavy. That's because she was frightened, her memory is confused." He tried to defend himself, but his voice carried a weakness that even he couldn't convince himself of. "Is that so?" I let out a light laugh, the sound like shattering icicles. "And what about you, Lu Xiang? Even though you were barely conscious, you must have had some physical sensations, right? Who was it whispering in your ear, telling you to hold on, whose hands were desperately pulling and prying at the metal trapping you? That touch, that voice. Do you really not remember any of it? Or?" I took a step forward, my gaze sharp as a blade, piercing straight into the part of his heart he least wanted to face. "Are you simply unwilling to remember, because you've long grown accustomed to Su Lingrui's gentle affection, long convinced that she is your light, so you subconsciously reject any truth that might shatter this beautiful illusion? Shut up." Lu Xiang seemed to have been struck at his most painful wound. He abruptly raised his hand as if to grab my shoulders, but it froze mid-air, clenching tightly into a fist instead. The knuckles cracking under the strain, a storm of intense emotions raged in his eyes. Anger, humiliation, chaos, and a hint of panic at having been seen through. "Su Qingwu, you." He stared at me fiercely, his chest heaving violently, yet he couldn't utter another complete accusation. Raindrops dripped from his hair, spreading dark stains across his expensive suit jacket. He stood at the entrance of my apartment like a beast lost in the downpour, his pride completely shattered, leaving only wretchedness and pent-up agony. Watching him in that state, my heart turned cold. "Can't handle it already? What is this compared to the death you inflicted upon me? Mr. Liu, if there's nothing else, please leave." I took a step back, preparing to close the door. "You are not welcome here." Under his gaze, which suddenly tightened with shock, I unhesitatingly shut the door, cutting him off along with the cold rain outside. Leaning against the door, I could hear his heavy, suppressed breathing outside, and finally, the sound of his staggering footsteps as he walked away. I slowly slid down to sit on the floor, hugging my knees tightly. There was no imagined sense of satisfaction, only a deep weariness and emptiness. The confrontation was over. I tore off his last piece of fig leaf. What will he do next? Will he continue to deceive himself, clinging to his pathetic pride and the love that has become a laughingstock, or will he go completely mad, unleashing all his anger and resentment on the one who turned him into a joke? I am very curious. Chapter 14. After Lu Xiang left, my small apartment returned to quiet. The rain outside the window was still falling, pattering and dripping, tapping against the glass, as if accompanying another storm unfolding in the distance. I didn't turn on the light and sat in the deepening dusk for a long time, until my limbs grew somewhat stiff. The phone screen occasionally lit up in the darkness. Messages from Sister Ju about the production progress of the new collection, forming a stark contrast to the world outside that had nothing to do with me. I stood up, made a cup of hot tea, and holding the warm cup, walked over to the window. The street below was empty, with no trace of Lu Xiang left. Only the wet ground reflected the dim yellow glow of the streetlights, like a flowing, sorrowful river. I knew that my direct confrontation with him had temporarily come to an end, but the storm I had stirred up was now fiercely rebounding, in its own way, upon those caught in the center of the vortex. Over the next few days, fragmented pieces of information trickled in through various channels, piecing together the devastation at the center of the storm. Su Lingrui completely broke down. It was said that she was asked by the Lu family to leave her previously arranged residence and was temporarily staying in a hotel. Sun Wanfang and my father stayed by her side, but it was of no use. At times, she would scream and cry hysterically, cursing me, cursing Lu Xiang, cursing everyone. At other times, she would fall into a deathly silence, her eyes vacant, refusing to eat or drink. Paparazzi managed to capture a photo of her during one of her outings. In the photo, she looked haggard and was dressed casually, a far cry from the radiant future daughter-in-law of the Lu family she once was. She covered her face with her hand, trying to avoid the camera, appearing utterly disheveled. Those so-called friends and brands that once fawned over her had long since vanished without a trace. Some even came forward to draw a clear line, hinting that they had long seen her questionable character. Social death is nothing more than this. As for Lu Xiang, he was experiencing another form of destruction. He didn't come to see me again, but Jiu Huaishan occasionally sent me a few vague messages, his checking all the dashcam footage and surveillance from that night. He went to find the traffic police and medical staff who handled the accident at the time. He locked himself in his office and refused to see anyone. He was frantically searching for evidence that could prove Su Lingrui's innocence or prove that I had ulterior motives. He couldn't accept that he had been so thoroughly deceived, and even more, he couldn't accept that the woman he had once been so grateful to, and even loved through rose-colored glasses, turned out to be a complete and utter lie. His pride, his judgment, and the love he thought he had were all crushed to pieces in the face of the truth. Meanwhile, the pressure on the Lu Group was increasing day by day. The stock price fluctuations were just the surface. The more profound impact lay in the shaken confidence of their partners and the opportunistic attacks from competitors. The Lu parents were overwhelmed, having to stabilize the company on one hand while dealing with various potential risks brought on by their son's loss of control. It is said that Lu Xiang openly clashed with a senior board member during a meeting, displaying a stubborn and aggressive attitude that nearly tore their relationship apart. He was no longer the calm and intelligent tech prodigy, but a dangerous wildcard driven by anger and a sense of failure. All of this was within my expectations. Lies are like high-interest loans. The easier they are to take out, the more devastating the repayment. Su Lingrui overdrew on glory and love that did not belong to her, and now she is repaying it with interest, using her reputation, spirit, and future. Lu Xiang overdrew on his blind trust and obsessive protection, and now he is also settling the debt with his career, reason, and pride. And me, I was simply the one who saw the truth first and then gently pushed over the first domino. That evening, I received a phone call from Sun Wanfang. It was from an unfamiliar number, and I hesitated for a moment before answering. As soon as the call connected, she started cursing with a tearful voice and a heavy nasal tone. "Su Qingwu, you jinx. You ungrateful wretch, are you determined to drive your sister to her death? It's all your fault that she's ended up like this. Are you satisfied now?" Holding the phone, I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights, my voice calm and steady. She was the one who chose to take credit for someone else's work. She was the one who chose to deceive. She walked this path herself, so she should bear the consequences. "Bullshit," Sun Wanfeng shrieked. "If it weren't for your jealousy of Linga and you bringing out those damn photos, how could things have turned out like this? You just can't stand to see her do well. I'm telling you, if anything happens to Linga, I'll haunt you even as a ghost. Is that so?" I chuckled softly. "Then you'd better ask your precious daughter first. When she was climbing up by stepping on my flesh and blood, did she ever think about letting me go?" The other end of the phone suddenly fell silent, leaving only heavy, ragged breathing. I continued, my tone icy cold. "And one more thing. Stop calling to harass me. I'm tired of watching your family's drama." With that, I hung up the phone directly and added this number to the blacklist as well. The world has quieted down, I know. Su Lingrue's condition might be really bad, but what does that have to do with me? In my previous life, when I fell into the icy sea, did anyone ever spare me? What goes around comes around. What they inflicted upon me is now rebounding upon them 1,000-fold in another form. I turned off my phone and prepared to rest. Tomorrow, there are new design drafts to complete. My life, my future, will no longer be entangled with these rotten people and their messy affairs. As for how they struggle in the mud, how they tear at each other, that is merely insignificant news I occasionally glance at in my spare time. Chapter 15. The days passed by as quickly as turning the pages of a book. My new series Breaking the Cocoon officially went into production, and Sister Ju's trust in me grew day by day, gradually allowing me to handle some core client liaison work. The small rented apartment slowly filled with more of my own belongings. The bookshelf was packed with design-related books and interesting little trinkets I had collected, and several pots of pothos on the windowsill grew lush and green. I deliberately avoided news about the Lu and Su families. But some developments inevitably reached my ears. Su Lingrue seemed to have truly gone mad, not metaphorically, but a mental breakdown in the medical sense. Paparazzi captured photos of her being secretly taken to a private mental health facility, accompanied by Sun Wanfeng and my father, both of whom had aged and looked much more haggard, no longer displaying the flattery and pride they once showed in front of the Lu family. It is said that she has moments of clarity, during which she cries and screams hysterically, claiming that someone harmed her and that Lu Xiang wronged her. At other times, she is confused, huddling in a corner and muttering to herself, repeating phrases like "I didn't mean to," "I'm afraid of the dark," and "don't leave me." The position of the Lu family's young mistress, which she once coveted, became a cage that imprisoned her. The halo of being the savior, which she once took pride in, became the final straw that crushed her. She completely vanished from the public eye, becoming a name occasionally mentioned with mockery and sighs, and Lu Xiang embarked on a completely different path of destruction. He was not insane, but his obsession and rage burned in a calmer and more terrifying way. Jiyu Huaishan would occasionally send messages, each time with a tone more grave than the last. He found the dashcam footage from a passing truck that night. The angle was very skewed, but it partially captured the rescue process. He spoke with the first paramedic who arrived at the scene, who mentioned that the first person to carry out the rescue was a girl in dark clothes who moved very quickly, while another girl in a light-colored dress kept crying in the distance. He had a big argument with Su Lingrue, who, in her emotional breakdown, let it slip and admitted that she was too frightened to do anything at the time. Each piece of information felt like a heavy stone, crashing into Lu Xian's already battered perception. He never came to confront me again. Perhaps because the evidence was enough for him to see the truth, or perhaps because he couldn't face the real benefactor he had pushed away and, indirectly, caused the death of. He poured all his energy into his work, or rather, into a near self-destructive frenzy of expansion and competition. The business landscape of the Lu Group was forcibly stretched thin in a short period, with several aggressive investment projects carrying extremely high risks, which drew strong opposition from some members of the board. Yet, he stubbornly pressed on. He began to appear frequently in financial news. No longer the tech prodigy representing innovation and the future, but a ruthless, unpredictable, and dangerous figure whose methods were both cunning and inscrutable. His eyes, captured in media shots, grew increasingly gloomy and cold, as if concealing a storm. I knew he was using this method to numb himself, and at the same time, in an extreme way, proving something to all those who were watching and waiting for his downfall, proving that he hadn't been defeated. Proving that even after being deceived, he was still the formidable Lu Shiyang, ridiculous and pitiful. That day, I went to a high-end hotel in the city center to meet a client regarding a collaboration detail. The discussion went smoothly, and by the time it ended, it was already late in the evening. As soon as I stepped out of the hotel's revolving door, I noticed a commotion not far away. Several black luxury cars were parked at the entrance, surrounded by a crowd of reporters and onlookers. In the center of the commotion, surrounded by people, was Lu Shiyang. He had just come out of a business forum, accompanied by his assistants and bodyguards. He was wearing an expensive custom-made suit. His figure still tall and straight, but the lines of his profile were tightly drawn. His eyes filled with an intense gloom and exhaustion. Ignoring the flashing cameras and outstretched microphones around him, he quickly made his way to his car. At that moment, a familiar figure suddenly rushed out from the crowd. It was Sun Wanfeng. She looked much older, her hair was disheveled, and her clothes were no longer as glamorous as before. She cried out and threw herself toward Lu Shiyang. Young Master Lu, please have mercy. Let our Linga go. She knows she was wrong. She's neither human nor ghost now. All because of you. You can't be so heartless. The bodyguards immediately stepped forward to stop her. Lu Shiyang paused in his steps and slowly turned around. He looked at the seemingly deranged Sun Wanfeng, his eyes devoid of any warmth, filled only with icy disgust. Because of me, he spoke. His voice not loud but carrying a bone-chilling coldness that quieted the noisy crowd around them. It's because of your insatiable greed, because of Su Lingrue's shameless deceit, you've brought this upon yourselves. No, that's not true, Sun Wanfeng wailed. It's Su Qingwu, it's all that Jinx's fault, it was her. Shut up. Lu Shiyang snapped sharply, the veins on his temples throbbing. He seemed to be stung by a certain name, his eyes instantly turning terrifying. Don't mention her again. You're not worthy of uttering her name. He cast one last disgusted glance at Sun Wanfeng, as if looking at her for another second would dirty his eyes, then turned and got into the car without hesitation. The black motorcade sped away, leaving Sun Wanfeng collapsed on the ground. Surrounded by pointing fingers and camera lenses, crying her heart out, I stood in the shadows at the hotel entrance, quietly watching the scene unfold, as if watching a farce that had nothing to do with me. Sun Wanfeng's sobbing complaints and Lu Xian's furious outbursts failed to stir even the slightest ripple in my heart. Su Lingrue has gone mad, Lu Xiang is driving himself insane, and Sun Wanfeng and my father are also in hell. This mess is even more in line with expectations than I imagined. I pulled my coat tighter, turned around, and walked toward the subway station in the other direction. The night wind was cold, but my heart was completely calm. Chapter 16, 2 years later. My personal studio officially opened in a creative park. The name is simple. When the fog rises, Sister Ju became my partner. Although our small team is not large, it has strong cohesion, and several of our series have gradually gained recognition in the independent design circle. I am no longer the obscure figure who had to rely on attending banquets to promote myself. Life is busy and fulfilling. I rarely pay attention to the names and past that I have long left behind, until that day. Jiyu Huaishan appeared again at the door of my studio. He looked a bit more mature, with the same cool and detached demeanor of a doctor between his brows, but he seemed to have gained a bit more depth. In his hand, he held an exquisitely wrapped gift. Congratulations on the opening of your studio. He handed over the gift. A uniquely shaped glass ornament, radiant and colorful, perfectly matching the aesthetic of design. Thank you, Dr. Gu, you're too kind. I invited him in to sit. The studio isn't large, but it's arranged with great style, with elements of breaking the cocoon and the subsequent series visible everywhere. Sunlight filters through the blinds, casting dappled shadows on the floor. Gu Huaishan glanced around the space, his gaze settling on me. You look well, not bad. I poured him a glass of water. It's mainly about doing what I love, which gives me peace of mind. He nodded, remained silent for a moment, and then brought it up as if making casual conversation. Su Lingrue, her condition has been fluctuating, and she needs long-term hospitalization. Her parents sold most of their assets to cover the expenses, moved away, and rarely come back here. I listened without any change in my expression. This outcome had been written from the moment she took credit for someone else's work. Madness was her final refuge from reality and guilt. Lu Corporation. Gu Huaishan paused, his voice lowering slightly, had a severe financial crisis last quarter. Several aggressive projects failed one after another. The funding chain broke, and the company became insolvent. The board forcibly removed Shi Yang from his position. My hand holding the water cup paused slightly. This came faster and more thoroughly than I had imagined. After he left his job, his mental state has been very poor. Gu Huaishan looked at me with a complicated expression. Last month, he drove under the influence and crashed through the guardrail on the cross-sea bridge. The room was so quiet that the faint sound of wind outside the window could be heard. They managed to pull him out of the water, but his injuries were too severe. His spinal nerves were damaged, and his lower body is permanently paralyzed. I slowly set down the water glass, the bottom of the glass making a crisp sound as it touched the table. Paralyzed, in the previous life, he personally orchestrated it, causing me to accidentally fall into the sea, leaving no trace of my body. In this life, he lost control after drinking and rushed into the deep sea himself, ending up permanently disabled. Is this another form of karma? In a way, his parents couldn't bear the shock, and their health deteriorated. The Lu Corporation is applying for bankruptcy restructuring. After Gu Huaishan finished speaking, the room fell into silence once again. I didn't say anything, just walked to the window and looked at the lush trees in the park and the young designers coming and going. Su Lingrue has gone insane. Lu Xiang is crippled. The Lu family has fallen. Those who were once infinitely glorious and manipulated me at will have now paid the most devastating price for their own choices. There is no imagined ecstasy, nor any feigned sympathy. Only a sense of settled calm and a faint, elusive relief. Gu Huaishan's voice sounded from behind, called me once before the accident. He said he had figured out all the details of that night. He said he owed you an apology. Sorry. I gazed at the bright sunlight outside the window, squinting slightly. Too light. These 3 words could never make up for the bone-chilling seawater of the previous life, nor the despair of being pushed toward death by the person I trusted the most. But it doesn't seem to matter anymore. It's all in the past. I turned around, my face devoid of any extra expression. His I'm sorry no longer holds any meaning for me. My life has long since turned to a new page. They are merely a few ink-stained characters from the previous page that were eventually torn out. Gu Huaishan looked at me, as if trying to find a trace of resentment or emotion in my eyes, but all he saw was a calm, deep sea. He ultimately said nothing, just nodded. After seeing Gu Huaishan off, I returned to my workbench and continued revising an unfinished design draft. The lines were smooth, the concept innovative, full of anticipation for the future. In the evening, I locked the studio door and walked home alone. The sunset painted the sky in a warm shade of orange-red. Passing by the huge electronic screen on the street corner, financial news was playing, and the host reported in a calm tone that the Lu Group had officially entered bankruptcy liquidation proceedings. The scene flashed by without drawing any passers-by to stop and watch. The end of an era, silent and unnoticed. I lifted my head and gazed at the last brilliant streak of twilight on the horizon. The karma is cleared, the grudges are settled.